Erev Tov Rabotai, we're continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Maaser Sheni. We're up to Perek Bet, Mishnah Bet. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'en Mishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Aranbayev and Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Minuchatam Began Eden, Amen. In yesterday's Mishnah, we learned that Maaser Sheni oil may be rubbed on the skin. Today's Mishnah is going to quote an opinion that forbids using it in such a way. Rabbi Shimon says, En tzachin shemen shel Maaser Sheni b'Yerushalayim. We may not rub with Maaser Sheni oil in Yerushalayim. Rather, Maaser Sheni produce may only be eaten or drunk. V'chachamim matirin, but the sages permit rubbing with Maaser Sheni oil. And the Mefarshim explained in yesterday's Mishnah, which stated that Maaser Sheni oil may be rubbed on the skin. That followed the opinion of the Chachamim. Amru lo leRabbi Shimon, the Chachamim said to Rabbi Shimon, Im ekel bitruma chamura, lo nakel b'maaser sheni akal. If we are lenient concerning tiruma, meaning we allow a person to rub tiruma oil on his skin, like we learned in Mishnayot Masechet Shvi, chapter 8, Mishnah 2, even though tiruma generally has stricter laws than those of Maaser Sheni, lo nakel b'maaser sheni akal, should we not be lenient concerning Maaser Sheni and allow it to be used for rubbing, since Maaser Sheni generally has more lenient laws? And the Mefarshim explain, Tiruma is generally considered stricter because it may be eaten only by Kohanim, while Maaser Sheni is permitted to everyone. Amar lehem, Rabbi Shimon said to the Chachamim, Ma lo, what? That's not a valid argument, as the Tosfot Yom Tov explains how to read it. Im hekel bitruma chamura. While here we are lenient when it comes to tiruma, although tiruma generally has stricter laws, makom shekel bekar shenim ubitiltan. We are also lenient with tiruma in other cases, like in the cases of vetch and fenugreek, which are bean-like plants usually used as animal feed, because regarding certain laws, vetch and fenugreek of tiruma are treated more leniently than vetch and fenugreek of Maaser Sheni, like we'll learn in the next Mishnayot. Nakel b'Maaser Sheni akal, should we be lenient about Maaser Sheni just because it is usually more lenient than tiruma? Makom shelo ket b'chashim b'titan, when there are cases when we are not lenient with Maaser Sheni, like in the cases of vetch and fenugreek, meaning even though tiruma's laws are stricter than those of Maaser Sheni in many ways, there are some laws, like those regarding vetch and fenugreek, for which tiruma laws are more lenient. Therefore, the fact that it is permitted to rub with tiruma oil is no reason to say that it should be permitted to rub with Maaser Sheni oil. And the Rav says, and the halacha ke Rabbi Shimon, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Shimon, the halacha follows the Chachamim. They are allowed to rub with Maaser Sheni oil in Yerushalayim. That is in Rabotai Mishnah Bet. Mishnah Gimel now is going to elaborate on what Rabbi Shimon just said. Rabbi Shimon said that vetch and fenugreek of tiruma have more lenient laws than vetch and fenugreek of Maaser Sheni. The Mishnah is going to explain now how this is true of fenugreek, which is a bean-like plant with edible stalks. Now, in addition to the stalks, fenugreek contains seeds which are used as spices, but our Mishnah is only going to discuss the stalks, which are edible only when they're moist. So the Mishnah says, Tiltan shel Maaser Sheni te'achel tzimchonim. Fenugreek of Maaser Sheni must be eaten when its stalks are young and moist, because when fenugreek ripens further, its stalks turn hard and inedible. Since it is forbidden to cause Maaser Sheni to go to waste, a person must eat his fenugreek stalks before they become inedible. However, fenugreek that is tiruma may be kept until it hardens. And the Mefarshim explain, once fenugreek dries, it is fit only for animal feed. Now, since Maaser Sheni may not be fed to animals, fenugreek that is Maaser Sheni will have no use after it dries. That'll be going to waste. Fenugreek that is tiruma, however, may be fed to animals. Therefore, you can keep it until it dries, because then it can be fed to animals and will not go to waste. Now, most tiruma may not be fed to animals, but fenugreek is an exception. Therefore, we see the law for fenugreek of tiruma is more lenient than the law of fenugreek for Maaser Sheni. The Mishnah now is going to discuss another law about fenugreek that is tiruma. Tiruma may never be handled by a person who is tameh. In addition to that, the Chachamim decreed that even a person who is ta'om must wash his hands before touching tiruma. If someone touches tiruma with unwashed hands, the tiruma is considered tameh. We will see this more in B'ezrat Hashem in Bikurim, chapter 2, Mishnah 1. The Mishnah now quotes a machloket about whether this requirement applies to fenugreek, which has more lenient laws than ordinary tiruma. The Mefarshim explain, as a rule, only produce that people eat is obligated in tiruma. Fenugreek is used mainly as an animal feed and is therefore not obligated in terumah by Torah law. Since some people do eat the stalks when they're moist, the Chachamim obligated in terumah. However, it doesn't have the same stringencies as ordinary terumah. So the Mishnah says, V'shel terumah, with regards to fenugreek of terumah, Bet Shammai Omrim, Bet Shammai say, Kol Maaser b'Tahorah, everything that is done to prepare it must be done in a state of purity, meaning a person must wash his hands before touching it, just as he must wash his hands before touching other produce that is terumah, because although fenugreek is generally treated more leniently than ordinary terumah, the rabbis still decreed that it may not be touched with unwashed hands, so that people will remember that it's terumah and no non-Kohen will eat it. Chutz mechafifatah. An exception to this rule is shampooing with fenugreek terumah. A person may use terumah fenugreek to clean his hair because it was commonly used to make a form of shampoo without washing his hands, because once it is used as a shampoo, it's no longer edible and there's no concern that a non-Kohen will eat it. The Mishnah now is going to cite the opinion of Bet Hillel, which is based on a basic rule of Tumah, that food can become tameh only if it has been chushar Tumah, prepared for Tumah by becoming wet with one of these 7 liquids, one of them which is water. Bet Hillel Omrim, Bet Hillel say, Kol Maaser b'Tumah, everything that is done to terumah fenugreek may be done in a state of tumah. The Chachamim did not require a person to wash his hands before touching fenugreek that is terumah, chutz mishriyatah, unless he is soaking it. If a person soaks such fenugreek, he must wash his hands first, because soaking fenugreek with unwashed hands causes 2 things to happen. Number 1, it prepares the fenugreek to become tameh by wetting it, and it makes it tameh by bringing it into contact with unwashed hands. This action the Chachamim did forbid as a reminder that it is terumah. And Mephoshim explain, while Bet Shammai said that a person must almost always wash his hands for fenugreek as a reminder that it is terumah, Bet Hillel hold that the Chachamim required less of a reminder. They ordered that a person only has to wash his hands in one case, where he's touching the fenugreek with unwashed hands, and that would prepare it for tumah, and it would make it tameh at the same time. Basically, the Chachamim hold you have to have it in a specific case where touching the fenugreek with unwashed hands would both prepare it for tumah and make it tameh at the same time. That requirement is enough of a reminder. And that is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.